Hello my dear friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joycey Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the strategy for New India at 75 which was unveiled by the NITI Aayog recently. This is a document that was released by NITI Aayog and this document discusses about the strategy that India has to adopt in order to excel in every aspect by the year 2022-23, that is at 75 years of independence. Now before we move on to the details of this document, I would like to make a clarification regarding NITI Aayog's year-end report and strategy for New India at 75. So please do not confuse between both these documents. So there is another document released by NITI Aayog, that is the year-end report. So this year-end report focuses on bringing out all the activities or all the initiatives taken by NITI Aayog during the last year. So that is the year-end report, and in the year-end report strategy for New India at 75, this strategy report also has a place. So it is a part of year-end report and both these documents are entirely different. So please do not confuse between both these documents, and the lectures of both these documents are available on StudyIQ channel. You can also find the year-end report of NITI Aayog lectures that is divided into two lectures. So you can find two lectures of NITI Aayog year-end report, and now we will be discussing about the strategy for New India at 75, which will also be a series of two lectures. So please make sure that you do not confuse between both these documents which are released by NITI Aayog itself. Now let us start with strategy for New India at 75. Let us first look at the current affair. NITI Aayog has recently unveiled its comprehensive national strategy for New India. So it is a comprehensive strategy for New India. So from the name itself, it is very evident. Strategy for New India at 75. So when India turns 75, that is at 75 years of independence, what should be India, and for that what is a strategy? That is what it is discussed. So this document which talks about the strategy, it defines clear objectives for 2022-23 financial year, that is when India turns 75, and this document was released by Union Finance Minister Shri Arun Jaitley, and this is an attempt to bring in innovation, technology, enterprise and efficient management at the core of policy formulation and implementation. So that is what NITI Aayog describes this document as. It is an attempt to bring in innovation, technology, enterprise and efficient management at the core of policy formulation and implementation. So whenever a policy is made or whenever a policy is implemented, all these factors are taken into consideration. And it also focuses or emphasizes on public participation. It says that development must be Jan Andolan, and because of this concern, that is it should be participative in nature, NITI Aayog has followed an extremely participatory approach in preparing this strategy. So when the strategy is prepared, NITI Aayog has taken caution that at every level of this strategy, participation from all the stakeholders are involved. Now let us come to the document. We will see what does this document contain. What does strategy for New India at 75 contain? This is a detailed exposition across 41 crucial areas. It recognizes the progress already made in these areas. It also identifies what are the constraints, and also it suggests way forward or what has to be done in order to achieve the clearly stated objectives. So 41 crucial areas have been identified and the progress in these areas are measured. Constraints in these areas are identified, and it also suggests the way ahead or solution in order to overcome the constraints. And this strategic document will be followed by a vision document in the future. So now this is a strategy document. So it provides what should be done, or the strategy is provided, and this document will be followed by a vision document in the future. And this vision document will spell out a 15-year growth trajectory India needs to follow. So in case of this strategic document, it aims at 2022-23. So the focus period is shorter. That means in the next 3 years, what has to be done in order to make a new India by 2022-23. That is what the strategy document focuses on. But in case of vision document, it focuses on a longer period, that is what India has to achieve in the next 15 years. That is the vision document. Now coming to the focus of the strategy document. This strategic document focuses on propelling India towards a $5 trillion economy by 2030. So it states that India should become a $5 trillion economy by 2030, and it also says that this can be done only through participation. Various stakeholders, the public has to participate in the developmental process or in the growth processes, and only then it is possible to achieve this target of $5 trillion economy by 2030. And it also says that there is a requirement to improve the policy environment. So by improving the policy environment, both the private investors and also other stakeholders can contribute their maximum towards achieving the goals set out in the strategy document, that is New India at 75. So this is in brief about the document. Hope you have an idea what this document is. This is basically a strategic document. It talks about the strategy India needs to adopt by 2022-2023 financial year, and it has taken a participatory approach as well. Now coming to the most important part, we will see what are the recommendations made by NITI Aayog on the most important aspects. So the recommendations can be divided into 4. One is the recommendation on the drivers. These are the growth drivers. The second one is the recommendations on infrastructure. The third one is the recommendations for inclusion. And fourth one, recommendations on governance. So these are the 4 broad classifications under which NITI Aayog has made its recommendations. Now coming to the first category, that is the drivers. Let us look what are the recommendations that NITI Aayog has made on growth drivers of the economy. First is the economic growth. NITI Aayog suggests that an acceleration or an improvement in economic growth must be inclusive, sustainable, clean and formalized. So these are the 4 pillars that NITI Aayog focuses on. So economic growth is measured in terms of GDP. Economic development is a wider concept where economic growth plus social indicators are added. So the first growth driver NITI Aayog focuses is on economic growth. So it is measured in terms of GDP of a country. So NITI Aayog says that in order to increase or enhance the economic growth, it should be more inclusive. That means all the stakeholders, all the public must be included in the growth process. It must be sustainable. That means it should consider the needs of the future generation as well. It should be clean and also it should be formalized. And we have seen that economic growth is measured in terms of GDP. GDP is the gross domestic product. So how is GDP measured? It is the sum total or monetary value of all the goods and services produced in an economy within a financial year. So this is GDP, and according to the strategy provided by NITI Aayog, GDP has to steadily accelerate. That means it should be steady acceleration. There should not be any downward trend. So GDP should steadily accelerate to achieve a GDP growth rate of at least 8% on an average during 2018 to 23 financial year. So GDP for every year would be calculated. So the sum total divided by the number of years will give the average. So for 2018 to 23 financial years, the average of GDP must be at least 8%, and it should be a steady acceleration or steady growth. There should not be a downward trend in GDP growth. So this is the recommendation provided by NITI Aayog on GDP. So how can GDP be improved? It can be improved by increasing the production in the economy. It can be goods or it can be services. So the production of goods and services in the economy must go up, and this will increase the GDP. Now the second one is investment rate. This is also called gross capital formation rate. So what is meant by investment or gross capital formation? This is the addition of capital to the economy in every financial year. So the investment rate at present in the economy is 29% of GDP. So in terms of GDP, the investment rate is 29%. And NITI Aayog under the strategy, recommends that by 2022-23 financial year, it should improve at least to 36% of GDP. And here again another recommendation that is made by the NITI Aayog is that at least half of this 36% of GDP should come from public investment. That means government investment. So this is the vision for investment rate by the NITI Aayog. So the present rate is 29%. It should increase to 36% by 2022-23, and half of this must be contributed by the government or by the public investment. Next is regarding the tax to GDP ratio. So tax to GDP ratio is tax divided by GDP. So this is the proportion of tax compared to GDP of an economy. So the recommendation of NITI Aayog is that the tax to GDP ratio should increase at least to 22% of the GDP by 2022-23. So there should be an increase in the tax revenue for the government. That will increase the tax to GDP ratio. And this increase in tax to GDP ratio will help in enhancing public investment, which we have talked in the second factor. So investment rate should be increased by 36%, wherein which half should at least come from the government side or from the public investment. So one solution recommended by NITI Aayog is to increase the tax to GDP ratio, because when the tax to GDP ratio is increased, what happens? The tax collection for the government will increase. So tax is a major source of revenue for the government. So increase in tax collection means there is an increase in tax revenue for the government. So when there is an increase in tax revenue, government will have more income, more revenue. So government can make this revenue in making investments. Now next is regarding the tax compliance. In order to ease the burden of tax compliance, technology should eliminate direct tax interface between the taxpayers and the tax officers or tax officials. So there should be an application of technology in tax compliance, and this will ease the process of tax compliance. So by easing the process, there will be more tax compliance, and with increased tax compliance, there will be more tax revenue for the government. And technology can play a vital role in increasing the tax compliance. Now coming to the next driver, that is agriculture. So agriculture is a very important driver of economic growth, because a majority of population in India is directly dependent on agriculture. It also creates a lot of employment opportunities, especially in the rural India. It also contributes to around 16% of the GDP or the gross domestic product. And in NITI Aayog's strategy document, it says that the focus must be on converting farmers into agripreneurs. So this term agripreneurs are used. That means converting farmers into agricultural entrepreneurs. Now, why is this term used in NITI Aayog document? The reason is that the entrepreneurs, they aim at making profit. So profit maximization is the aim of the entrepreneurs. For any private entity, the focus will be on generating or maximizing profit. So farmers should turn into agripreneurs. That means there should be a maximization of farmers' income. So the income of farmers should maximize, and this will pull them out of agricultural distress. And agricultural distress is the primary reason for rural distress. The reason is a majority of rural population is directly dependent on agriculture. So in order to pull out the farmers from agricultural distress, the income for the farmers should be stable, and it should also be remunerative. So turning farmers into agripreneurs should be the focus of the government. And NITI Aayog suggests certain recommendations for this. One is, this can be done by expanding the ENAM. ENAM is Electronic National Agricultural Market. So through ENAM, the farmers will get a better market for their produce. This will fetch them remunerative prices. Secondly, it recommends that APMC should be replaced with Agricultural Produce and Livestock Marketing Act. The third recommendation is that a creation of unified national market, freer export regime, and also the abolition of Essential Commodities Act. These three things will together boost agricultural growth. Let us see. The first one is unified market, where farmers will get remunerative prices for their produce. Now, the second one is freer export regime. That means ease in exporting. So, when agricultural commodities are exported to other countries, the farmers, the producers will be receiving better remuneration. So, exports of agricultural commodities should be made more liberal. And third one is the elimination or abolition of Essential Commodities Act. So what is Essential Commodities Act? Under this act, certain agricultural or food commodities will be placed. And these food commodities are considered to be essential commodities. And if they are placed under the list of essential commodities, they are banned from exporting. The reason for establishing an essential commodity list is that there should not be a shortage in the domestic market. So what happens with Essential Commodities Act? These commodities which are placed under the list cannot be exported, and to make them available in the domestic market, their export or trade is restricted. So because farmers does not have an option to export them or does not have a wider market access, the prices also tends to be lower. So this will put the farmers under distress. So this has to be rectified. So these three are the recommendations given by the NITI Aayog for converting farmers into agripreneurs. The intention is to increase the profit or income of the farmers. Now next is the zero budget natural farming, and NITI Aayog recommends that this needs a strong push. So what is zero budget natural farming? It includes techniques that reduce the cost of farming, improve the land quality, and also increase the farmer's income. So under zero budget natural farming, focus is given for reducing the cost of cultivation, improving the quality of the produce and the land, and thirdly to increase the farmer's income. Next is weather-based insurance. So NITI Aayog recommended that weather-based insurance should be included under the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. This must be included into the current mode of implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana ensures insurance to farmers. In case of crop failures, farmers will be insured on their agricultural land and crops, and they will be provided remuneration from the insurance companies. So a weather-based insurance must be included in the current mode of implementation, and that is the recommendation of NITI Aayog in the strategy document. Another important driver is employment creation. So NITI Aayog suggests that there should be a maximization of employment creation in the economy, and for that a complete codification of labor laws is essential. This will also formalize the sectors. This will increase the number of formal workers compared to informal or unorganized sector workers. And it also recommends that in order to enhance employment creation and to make utilization of the employment opportunities created, there should be an expansion of the training facilities or skill development. So focus must be given on skill development, and a policy attention must be given on codification of all the labor laws in the country. Now, next driver is Explore in India mission. So, this is a recommendation provided by NITI Aayog. NITI Aayog says that Explore in India mission has to be launched, and the purpose should be to revamp minerals exploration and licensing policy. So, Explore in India is a strategy suggested by NITI Aayog in order to explore the minerals in the country and also to create a licensing policy. So, these are the major drivers discussed in the document provided by NITI Aayog. The document is Strategy for New India at 75. And this strategy or the recommendations provided by NITI Aayog tries to bring in a certain level of development in the country by 2022-23 financial year, which will mark the 75th anniversary of the Independence Day, which will mark the 75th year of independence. Now the next set of recommendations are on the infrastructure of the country. How to develop the infrastructure of the country. The first one is regarding Rail Development Authority or the RDA. So under the strategy document, NITI Aayog says that the approval for the establishment of RDA or Rail Development Authority has already been done. So there is an approval for the establishment of a Rail Development Authority, but what has to be done? This creation of this authority must be quickened. And what is this Rail Development Authority? The Rail Development Authority focuses on advising or making informed decisions. So this is a decision making or an advisory body which makes decision or provides recommendation on an integrated, transparent and dynamic pricing mechanism for the railways. So this has to give recommendations on pricing mechanism for the railways. So this is a very important authority. This can be asked in your examination as a objective type question. The examiner can ask you what is the purpose of creating a rail development authority. And recently there were many discussions and debates regarding cross subsidization of Indian railways and also regarding the pricing mechanism of Indian railways, etc. So this authority is very important. The sanction has already been given. Now the quick establishment should be done, and this is for recommending on a integrated, transparent and dynamic pricing mechanism for the railways. Now second one is the coastal shipping and inland waterways. So under this category, NITI Aayog recommends that the share of freight transported must be doubled through coastal shipping and inland waterways. And there should also be a provision for viability gap funding until the infrastructure is completely developed. Now thirdly, regarding multi-modal and digitized economy or mobility, it recommends that multi-modal and digitized mobility should be promoted. Multi-modal means several modes like rail, waterway, road, etc. And digitized means using digital means. So this includes IT-enabled platform for integrating different modes of transport. Under infrastructure, next important recommendation was made regarding connectivity. 2.5 lakh gram panchayats will be digitally connected with the completion of BharatNet program in 2019. So BharatNet program aims to connect gram panchayats digitally. And further, adding on to this BharatNet program, which will be completed by 2019, NITI Aayog suggests that government should aim to deliver all the government services, the services provided by the government to the state government, to the district and to the Gram Panchayat level digitally by 2022-23. That means the services must be provided digitally. So these are the recommendations provided on the infrastructural category. And NITI Aayog as a summary notes suggests that these infrastructural measures are crucial to one, enhance the competitiveness of Indian business, and secondly, to ensure citizens' ease of living. So for the economy as a whole, this will be beneficial, and also for the individuals or at the individual level also this will be beneficial. That is adding on to the infrastructure or enhancement of infrastructure. So these are the recommendations provided on infrastructure, and already we have seen the recommendations provided on growth drivers. Now two more categories are remaining, that is inclusion and governance, which we will discuss in the next lecture. So the part 2 of this lecture will be available soon on StudyIQ channel. Please watch part 2 of this lecture also in order to get a complete understanding of this document. The entire document is available on the PIB website. This is a 250 pages around document. I would be covering all the important aspects which are discussed in this document provided by NITI Aayog. I will also be uploading the entire document on my Facebook page. You can download it from there also, or you can find it directly on the PIB website. So we'll be continuing the rest in the next lecture. Thank you.